In a world where global travel is no longer a luxury, but a necessity for many Kenyans, be it for business, education, work, or even love, some stories don't end on a high note. Behind international dreams and promise of greener pastures lies another reality, the dark side of being a foreigner abroad. Today, we shine a spotlight on Kenyans who have been jailed in foreign countries, from drug trafficking to fraud, theft to immigration violations. These are real life cautionary tales, some shocking, some tragic, and others controversial. Stay with us as we break down the crimes, the convictions, the prison experiences, and where some of these individuals are now. This is Jailed Abroad, Beyond Borders, Kenyans who are imprisoned abroad. We begin with the recent sentencing of Margaret Nduta Macharia, a 37-year-old Kenyan who was sentenced to death in Vietnam, which reignited concerns over the fate of Kenyan nationals facing capital punishment abroad. Nduta's case adds to a growing list of Kenyans sentenced to death in foreign countries for drug-related and other serious offenses, spotlighting the harsh penalties imposed under some nations' legal systems.
All right, listen to this news from overseas. The government has sought a stay of execution for 37-year-old Margaret Nduta, convicted of smuggling drugs into Vietnam. In a tweet, Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Dr. Korir Singoe assured that the Kenyan mission in Bangkok is following up on the matter following his conversation with the country's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, Nduta was sentenced to death by a Vietnamese court earlier this month after she was found guilty of trafficking 2 kilograms of cocaine.
On March 6, 2025, a Vietnamese court sentenced Margaret Nduta Macharia to death after convicting her of smuggling over 2 kilograms of cocaine through Tan Son Nhat International Airport in Ho Chi Minh City. Authorities discovered the drugs hidden in a concealed compartment of her suitcase. Despite her claim that she was unaware of the narcotics, Vietnamese prosecutors argued that the country's strict liability laws render ignorance as an insufficient defense. Nduta's legal team contended that she was manipulated by a man identified only as John, whom they claimed recruited her to deliver the suitcase in exchange of 1,300 euros, which is, in Kenya shillings, 168,571. However, Vietnamese courts are known for their inflexible stance on drug-related crimes, and the defense was dismissed. Nduta's family in Kenya had made emotional appeals to President William Ruto's government for diplomatic intervention. However, Vietnam enforces some of the most severe drug laws globally, with trafficking over 600 grams of heroin or cocaine carrying a mandatory death sentence. She was sentenced to life imprisonment after the government intervention on the 1st of August 2025. This is after she had taken a plea in March to reduce her death sentence.
Intervention, that is Kenya's Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Singoe, says that efforts are being made to save the life of Margaret Nduta Macharia, a Kenyan national facing execution in Vietnam. Nduta, convicted of drug trafficking, is said to be executed after the appeal deadline lapsed on March the 12th. This marks the co-government's first official response to mounting calls for action in saving the 37-year-old woman from Murang'a County.
While each country has bylaws which protect their borders, like Vietnam, let me take you back in the year 2017. A Kenyan by the name Rose Achieng Ojala, a mother of 3, was sentenced to death by a Malaysian court for trafficking approximately 400 grams of methamphetamine. Ojala was arrested at Kuala Lumpur International Airport on November 30th, 2013, after arriving from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Immigration officers became suspicious of her behavior, leading to a personal search where 3 capsules of methamphetamine weighing over 20 grams were found in her underwear. Further medical examinations revealed that Ojala had swallowed an additional 68 capsules containing 380 grams of the drug. During the trial, Ojala claimed her boyfriend had coerced her into transporting the drugs. The judge, however, ruled that the prosecution had proven its case beyond reasonable doubt and convicted her under Malaysia Dangerous Drug Act of 1962, which mandates the death penalty for drug trafficking. In addition to the death sentence, Ojala received a 3-year prison term for possessing a 20.7 gram of methamphetamine. From there henceforth, it remained unclear whether Ojala was executed or it was her sentence that was commuted to life imprisonment. As with the case of Ojala, the final sentence remained with the court. Now, let me take you forward again to the year 2024, where Stephen Bertrand Munyako, a 50-year-old Kenyan, narrowly avoided execution in Saudi Arabia after being convicted of murder following a 2011 fatal altercation with a Yemeni colleague.
But at the same time, we used to relieve each other. So on that account, he was like, I hold for him his job. Actually, that day there was a club match, you know. The two very big teams were playing, and he was supporting one and I was supporting the other. But he needed me to replace him so that he could watch the match. But he was just playing me because he was taking advantage of my need. So that's how he went. By the time he came back, I was like, okay, now you're done. So can you release me, you know? So he was like, why are you in a hurry and all those things? So I was like sort of angry, and he used bad words actually that touched on my mother that didn't uga well with me. So I held him by the shirt, and that's how the fight broke up. So there was this fire extinguisher that he tried to hit me with, and I happened to squeeze the nozzle, and the room was just full of white powder, you know. So I was not seeing him, he was not seeing me. But the next thing, I just felt a stab on my thigh. And when I was still reacting, another stab on the hand, on my left hand. So that is how I managed to overpower him actually, got the knife, and I returned it, you know. So
you returned it, what does that mean?
I stabbed him also on the chest.
So you took the weapon?
Yeah, I took it from him and I used it on him.
Munyako spent 13 years in prison after the death of Abdul Halim Mujahid Makrad Saleh, which resulted from a physical confrontation in April 9, 2011.
Now, it's a temporary relief for the family of Stephen Munyaho, who's a son to veteran journalist Dorothy Kweyu, after Saudi Arabia authorities agreed to Kenya's request to postpone his execution. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Sing'oei says that the Saudi authorities have allowed for further negotiations between all parties to bring the matter to a more acceptable conclusion. Munyaho, who has been in jail for 13 years, was to be executed on Wednesday this week in Saudi Arabia for allegedly killing his workmate, a Yemeni citizen, Abdul Saleh. The late Saleh was allegedly murdered in a fight when the two had a misunderstanding at their workplace, leading to Stephen's death sentence following an appeal by the victim's family.
Initially, he was charged with manslaughter. His conviction was later escalated to murder after the victim's family successfully appealed the ruling. His execution by beheading was scheduled for May 15, 2024, but intensive diplomatic engagement by the senior Kenyan government officials led to a reprieve. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs worked closely with the Saudi authorities to delay the execution while negotiations continued. On May 14, 2025, Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Korir Sing'oei confirmed that the Saudi authorities had granted Kenya's request to postpone the execution. In a statement, he announced, I am deeply grateful to inform that authorities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have kindly granted our request to postpone the impending execution of Stephen Munyako, known as Abdul Karim, to allow for further negotiation between all parties. To secure his release and avoid execution, Munyako was ordered to pay 1.15 million euros, approximately 150 million Kenya shillings, as blood money to the deceased family. The family had initially demanded 3.16 million shillings, approximately 400 million Kenya shillings, but later agreed to a lower amount after further discussions. In response to his situation, several fundraising campaigns were launched, urging the public to contribute towards the payment. Meanwhile, civil society organizations continued to call for Munyako repatriation to Kenya to face trial under the country's legal system. Munyako's case remained a case of subject of public interest, drawing widespread attention and advocacy efforts to secure his freedom. Eventually, Munyako was released and he took a flight back to the country on 28 July 2025. His family welcomed him back here in Kenya. Another case in the year 2013 was that of Flavian's Razan Owino, who had traveled to China to seek greener pastures, but pages flip-flopped, and in May 2015, Flavian's Razan Owino was sentenced to death in China for drug smuggling. Owino had left her one-year-old daughter in Nairobi in 2013, promising to find work abroad. Her family lost contact with her for 2 years until a mysterious caller from China informed them of her death sentence. Owino was arrested in Guangzhou, China, and convicted of trafficking drugs.
Now, the story of 28-year-old Flavian's Razan Owino, who was convicted of drug trafficking and sentenced to death by hanging in China, has received a lot of reactions here at home. But no one has received that news with greater pain than her own family. A family that now shockingly reveals that they had no idea that their kin was even in China in the first place.
Under Chinese law, death sentence for drug-related offenses are often suspended for 2 years pending a review. If a convict demonstrates a good behavior during this period, the sentence may be commuted to life imprisonment. Following diplomatic intervention and a successful appeal, Owino's sentence was eventually reduced to life imprisonment. Despite this reprieve, her family continued to rally for her campaign for her to return back to Kenya. Before we close on this documentary, we are going to highlight on some other frequent cases which involve Kenyans overseas that never saw major follow-up, and also Kenyans who are arrested around our neighboring countries. In the year 2010, a Kenyan by the name Justus Ogembi Kibabe was jailed for 76 years in the United States after the murder of his wife and his 2 children, which occurred on November, which was a murder case in New Jersey. The man was found guilty of the act. Suspecting his wife on cheating on him, Kibabe confessed before court that he struck her head with a golf club and then strangled her with an electric cord. Then there was his 9-year-old daughter and 12-year-old son. In his plea, Kibabe told of how he gave them drugs before drowning one and strangled the other with a pillow. Kibabe was found near his tolled car, apparently fleeing the scene of the crime. Also, in the year 2017, a case of Maxwell Omondi, who was 32 years then, was jailed in Ethiopia together with other Kenyans. His family from Kenya tried to reach out to him through his friends in Ethiopia. Though they got an opportunity to speak with him once, they were jailed at Kaliti Maximum Prison in the Federal Republic of Ethiopia.
Spoke to the prison officials who allowed us only 5 minutes to speak to my son. The 5 minutes were not enough. We only hugged and cried, and that was the end of it.
In the same month, the body of 36-year-old Zachary Muriuki had arrived in the country after 2 years of being jailed in Ethiopia. The man had left the country seeking for jobs in the neighboring country of Ethiopia. On 29 March 2015, 4 Kenyans working in South Sudan were arrested and jailed for alleged involvement in corruption at South Sudan's presidency. They were tried without lawyers and sentenced to jail for 72 years each. The families of Ravi Gather, Boniface Chuma, Anthony Kea, and Anthony Mwadime accused the Kenyan government of abandoning their kins. That is how the Ministry of Foreign Affairs released this picture on the screen of the 4 Kenyans with Kenya ambassador to South Sudan, Cleland Leshore. They worked with Click Technologies Limited and were accused of an attempt to defraud President Salva Kiir's office of Juba of 1.5 billion shillings. The families maintained their innocence and they held a vigil on the fateful night outside the Sarova Stanley Hotel. They claimed that President Salva Kiir, who was then in Kenya and was at the hotel for the IGAD summit, that they were hoping to petition him to release the 4. The 4 Kenyans were later freed from the life sentences in South Sudan jails after talks between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Salva Kiir that appeared in public for the first time. The 4 had been serving life sentences after conviction in the theft of 1.4 billion shillings. Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Monica Juma had asked Kenyans to engage in due diligence before taking up jobs in countries.
After close to 4 years in South Sudan, 2 of which were spent in prison, the 4 Kenyans Boniface Muriuki, Ravi Ramesh, Anthony Mwadime and Anthony Kea for the first time met with their families in a ceremony organized by the government at Lamada Hotel, Nairobi. The 4 in a group that included 12 South Sudan nationals who were jailed for fraud and money laundering in the office of South Sudan's President Salva Kiir, where 1.4 billion shillings was allegedly stolen through forgery of the presidential seal. They were imprisoned in 2015 and their families had piled pressure on the Kenyan government to secure the release of their loved ones, even staging night vigils and terming their conviction unfair. They had also accused the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of doing little to protect its citizens.
The cases of these Kenyans in this documentary highlights the vulnerabilities faced by foreign nationals in countries with harsh drug and criminal laws. Advocacy groups and human rights organizations continue to urge the Kenyan government to intensify diplomatic efforts to protect citizens facing capital punishment abroad. Meanwhile, the affected families hold on to hope that their loved ones may one day return home. Not every Kenyan abroad is a criminal, but not every Kenyan abroad is safe either. The stories we've shared today are not to judge, but to inform. They serve as harsh reminders of the legal risk that exists beyond Kenya's borders. Whether it's ignorance, desperation, manipulation, or outright crime, the consequences are the same. Freedom lost. As we celebrate our brothers and sisters making a difference abroad, let us also remember those who are locked up, sometimes forgotten, and often misunderstood. Until next time, this is your current strength reporter reminding you, choices made abroad may echo for a lifetime.